Hey, folks, thank you very much for joining us. My name is Alan Jones. I'm with HiFi Buys, and this is HiFi Chats number 6. I am so happy to be able to have Ken Forsythe, who is Director of Market Development for MQA. I know you already
Hello.
said hi, but say hi officially.
Hello. Hey, Alan. Hello, everybody. Hello, HiFi Buys.
Hey, you've been in the store a bunch of times, and we've always loved having you here. So anyway, I just want to thank you very much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
HiFi Chats is a weekly program that we do basically at 2 o'clock, speaking with different folks within the audio industry, folks that have influence out there, and Ken is certainly one of those. I want to do a little bit of housekeeping here if I can. If y'all would please like this and subscribe to the channel. Also, if you don't mind going to hifibuys.com, you can fill out a newsletter. We've actually got kind of an interesting newsletter out there that just went out today that I'm quite proud of. May 9th, 1995 was when I opened my store. And so tomorrow celebrates 25 years. I'm having a hard time swallowing right now. So
very cool. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I couldn't do it without all the wonderful people that have been mentors and helpers and customers and manufacturers. And it's just overwhelming. Family, that kind of thing as well. Just absolutely amazing. Also, last week we had Mike Latvis with HRS here. That's actually up on the YouTube channel for HiFi Buys. So just go to YouTube and type in HiFi Buys. You can see the previous 5 chats. Also, next week we'll have Richard Vanderstein, which I'm very excited about having as well. And, you know, anybody who's ever known or talked to him, he's definitely, without a doubt, one of the more interesting people in the business. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to talk a little bit about Ken and his a little bit of his personal life, and so we can learn a little bit about the people in the business and how they got here, some music that they love, and then we're going to get into some stuff about MQA. So Ken, you ready to go?
Yeah, fire away.
All right. You sure you're ready? You see me?
Ready, willing, and able.
All right. Very good. So I want to know a little bit about your family and where you grew up.
Gotcha. This usually turns into an hour conversation, so we'll keep it short and focused. But I was born and raised in Nassau, Bahamas.
I did not know that.
That's the reaction I always get.
Yes.
I'm the middle of 3 sons. There's 6 years each way. So as we joke, my parents were very prudent planners for college. 4 years to pay, 2 years to save. But yeah, middle son was really drilled in playing classical piano to about the age of 16. And wow. I will say I probably haven't touched a keyboard since. And I will say it's definitely a diminishing skill. So I would not pretend that I still play at all.
You know, what's funny is I have a note from my piano teacher, my mom, and I've said this before, I hope I don't bore everybody, but I have a note from my piano teacher that she sent me home with, and I had to hand it to my mother, and it says, he does not want to learn how to play the piano. Now I was quite young. So anyway, carry on, please tell us.
So yeah, basically grew up in the Bahamas, and my dad had a hi-fi store. So I kind of have, you know, audio in the blood. His father actually had, at the time they called it a radio store.
Mm-hmm.
But so yeah, I'm kind of 3rd generation of hi-fi in the blood. And awesome. Yeah, my dad's store was kind of unique in that we did hi-fi, and we also, of course, being in the Bahamas, we did kind of single sideband radio for Marine. We did things like that. And so kind of my dad's claim to fame in the Bahamas, he was the Motorola distributor for about 20 years. He actually sold the Bahamas the first cellular phone system.
Wow.
So yeah, that was kind of cool for me. That was kind of my last summer in college. I got to tag along in a lot of the negotiations and the engineering meetings. Not that I understood much, but it was really interesting kind of seeing negotiation and engineering at that level happen. It was a great experience.
Oh, so. And I would think in the Bahamas, the communication was a big deal down there. And
oh yeah,
not quite as easy as it is today. Pick up a cell phone and.
Yep. Oh yeah. I mean, and this was the day of, you know, the brick phones, and they were $3,000, and yeah, it was crazy. But yeah, it was great experience for me there.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now I understand you're, I believe, where are you right now? You are,
I'm in my home office in Powder Springs, so
okay,
not far
awesome.
from where you're at.
And I know you're getting ready to make a nice move with the family, and so I'm excited about that for you.
Yeah,
Uh,
we're looking to move to Nashville, so we're kind of waiting for this crazy to go. My wife is actually working her final day today as a teacher. She'll be retiring as of 4:30 this afternoon. So
wow.
she will be checking out, and that will be the first step in our move towards Nashville. So pretty excited. It's going to be a fun night at the Forsythe Ranch.
Well, I can only imagine. Well, congratulations to her, and thank her for everybody else for teaching our kids.
Yep,
So
will do.
anyway, that's absolutely awesome. What an amazing accomplishment. So, wow, it is going to be a special night. I'll make sure I call you about 9:30.
There you go. You'll go straight to voicemail.
Okay. Very well. All right. So, life experiences, things that have had an impact on your life. Tell us about one or two.
Yeah, I would have to say it was really working for my parents, and I think working for my parents wasn't kind of the easy job everybody thinks it is. We were definitely, and again, at the time, 6 years apart, me and my older brother. My older brother was also in the business. So we were definitely held to a completely different, higher standard than all the staff.
Yes.
Um, and I will say, I kind of worked on and off through summers, kind of through high school, but coming out of college, and so in high school, I was very kind of enamored, and I thought I desired to become an architect. So I actually have a minor in fine art, and that was very attractive to me. And it literally boiled down to kind of when it became time to apply for colleges, which was a challenge because being in the U.S., we didn't take SATs or ACTs, so it was a whole different kind of level of applying to a U.S.-based
Wow.
university. But we literally kind of got down to figuring out, okay, is it going to be an engineering school? Like, what am I looking at? Like, I applied to Georgia Tech, was one of the schools I looked at. And, my parents sat me down and they said, listen, like, we're not going to put pressure on you. There is a spot in the business if you would like to come in, but don't come in just because you're our son. You have to kind of carve your own path out. And as crazy as it sounds, I literally flipped a coin at the kitchen table.
Wow.
And I said, okay, I guess I'm in. So yeah, applied to colleges and wound up at University of Tampa, got a business degree there, which is kind of fortunate. I'm a big believer in kind of signs and how things interconnect and work out, because that's where I met my wife. So it's like, if I became an architect, I wouldn't be where I'm at now, certainly, or not in the position I'm in right now. So
Wow.
looking back, forever grateful of the coin flip, the
Wow.
side that ended up on top.
Well, it's great that I think, I've always been one of those that believes, you do kind of follow a path, and the path kind of presents all the things that are supposed to be presented to you. So that's awesome. I'm happy to hear that you're on that. So.
Yeah, so that had a pretty big, my parents, and the one thing I will say that was pretty amazing in hindsight, looking at kind of being in the family business, was that my parents had the ability to turn kind of business on and off. So it was, 9 to 5, it was pure on business. But at 5:30, 5:45, we were headed to the boat, and there was no discussion, we were headed to the beach. So, they had this unique ability that they could turn it on and off, and one didn't overlap with the other. So that made a big impact on me, the ability to kind of separate home and work.
And do you do that today very well?
Yeah, I try to.
I guess we'll find out soon with her retired.
Yeah, I mean, with MQA, it kind of blurs because so much of it is music driven. So
yeah,
it's kind of where your passion kind of spins into it too. But yeah, I mean, we kind of work hard and play hard at MQA, so we try to kind of keep the two separate.
That's
but
awesome.
That was pretty impactful on me. the kind of other things, the other really big impact on my life, and I promise I won't get political with this at all, was immigrating to the US.
Wow. I can only imagine. Ken, have you muted yourself? Have you muted?
Oh,
There you are.
okay,
So-
gotcha.
We lost your audio there for a minute. Sorry.
Gotcha. Yeah, so the other thing that was hugely impactful was immigrating to the US. So kind of coming to the US, you know,
I guess we're having some audio difficulties.
I was still a resident alien with permission to work in good standing.
Oh, that's awesome.
So my 20-year-old son thinks that's the funniest thing when I go, I was a resident alien. But yeah, that was pretty powerful. And the most meaningful thing to me about the process, and I joke, was that US Immigration and Customs treated everybody as poorly. There was no bias because I looked the way I did.
Mhm.
And the thing that was really kind of powerful to me was the day I went down to be sworn in. I remember I was there and my parents were there because my parents ended up in Georgia as well. And I remember looking around the room and seeing all the different people and nationalities and the looks and the religions and everything. And I remember just having one thought that kept going through my head. It's like, wow, what does an American look like? Because in an hour, I'm going to be one, and we're all going to be one.
Right.
And it was a hugely powerful experience. And it's definitely shaped the way I kind of look at people and interact with people. You know, not to get political or religious, but yeah, it's definitely shaped the way I approach everything, is kind of seeing everything as all one big family.
Well, in today's world, that's a wonderful thing for us all to hear. So thank you again for sharing that with us, because I can imagine that being, I can't imagine, but I can kind of perceive of how an emotional moment that must have been, and how just eye-opening it was to see that, you know, this is all walks of life and that we all are
Yeah.
one. And so anyway, that's awesome. All right, so let's talk a little bit about how you got into this business. Ken, we're having some audio issues. I can't hear you. You can't hear me either?
Okay, now you're back.
All right, very good. I'm losing you sometimes too. So anyway, so go ahead. Tell us a little bit about how you got into the business.
So it was really kind of, you know, just almost by osmosis with my parents. You kind of hung out on the weekends, you know, and again, it was kind of, hey, if you want to work, we'll pay you. But, you know, if you just want to kind of goof off and be a teenager, you could do that as well. And I will say there were, you know, some weeks in the summer that I would just goof off and be a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
But I was always kind of attracted to the technology side. I always just found it really interesting, kind of the parts and how you could achieve a result.
I'm sorry, folks, but I know we're having some difficulties here.
People who are in it to, you know, there's two types of people that listen to music, one that love music and one because it's just a tool to listen to gear with.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say probably at that point, I was more in that kind of group. It was like, just, hey, like I'm going to play this piece of music to see what the hardware does with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've had a mutual interest back and forth in kind of the gear and the music too. And so I certainly get that. And
yeah, I mean, I did have some, you know, transformative moments in music that were hugely impactful as well. But I would say kind of coming into it, I was definitely kind of more a gearhead.
I think we all start out a little more gearhead, just because the gear that produces this music that we love so much is interesting and pretty and You know, we're trying to find out what makes it do what it does.
Yeah, and I mean, having a dad with a hi-fi store, it's like I remember, him bringing like the first cassette machine home.
Oh, wow.
So it's like at a very young age there was vinyl in the house. Then like, he had open reel tape, but then it was like cassette because he could move it between the house and home. I mean,
Yep.
sorry, the house and the car.
I remember my brother bought one of those flat woolen sacks.
Oh yeah.
And I remember he studied and went through the big pages of all the catalogs, and we went to the stores and dad was helping them and so on. Anyway, I just remember that. I don't remember how young I was, but it was quite young. And anyway, okay, cool. So tell us a little bit about, most of us that are in the business kind of had a time where we kind of went, wow, music, oh my gosh. So can you tell us about when that time was for you?
Yeah, I mean, music, people often say this, and I firmly believe because it's true. It's like music is just so embedded with memories and things of the past
Yes.
that flood back good and bad memories. And I would say the first kind of revelation for me that I was aware that like I was having fun, it was this kind of communal thing, was, as strange as it sounds, so kind of probably up till I was maybe 10 years old, every weekend we would go camping on the beach. Like Friday, my dad would come home, we would pile in the truck. In my same neighborhood, my aunt and uncle lived, who had 7 kids. So at the time it was me and my older brother, and we would all pile in my dad's truck with 2 tents. We would go to the beach, and my dad and Uncle Bob would break out a bottle of Johnny Walker, while I would be tasked to light the fire, and the older boys would set the tent up. And we would get done with dinner, and my dad would pull out the cassette tape of Kenny Rogers, The Gambler. And we would all sing around the campfire. And that was the first time I consciously remembered music, going, hey, wow, this is like really cool. This is fun. All of us are doing it.
Again, folks, sorry for the technical difficulties.
Theme album that we would listen to.
Well, that's awesome. I think, all of us have been around a campfire at some point singing something, kumbaya, if anything. So,
yeah, and this, like I said, I mean, this was like definitely, before I was like 8 or 10. So this was like, I remember it was a Panasonic cassette player, mono speaker, battery operated, and yeah, we just kind of hang out with Kenny Rogers, and it was fun. Kind of as I matured, there were a couple other kind of experiences. One, again, shared with the family, this time with my younger brother being there, was Beethoven Symphony No. 9 in '89, where Leonard Bernstein, they played it at the fall of the Berlin Wall, Christmas Day. And I still kind of get emotional about it because we got up early that morning to listen to it on the BBC.
Wow.
Before breakfast. And it was like just it's such an amazing piece of music.
Again, I'm very sorry for the technical difficulties. Hopefully Ken will come back here. All right, Ken. So I'm sorry, we're losing your audio a bit. So anyway, we're gonna carry on to the next question. And basically, who is or are your mentors in this business life?
Really kind of the two that immediately come to mind would be Alan Boothroyd and Bob Stewart. I mean, I really spent the bulk of my professional career with Meridian. Mm-hmm. And, these were guys that were at the top, still are at the top of their game, but welcomed open arms. Like they treated everybody as an equal. They never talked over your head. They acknowledged everybody had contribution to make. And, the time at Meridian was like Disneyland. Like there was nothing that we couldn't do. There's nothing, I remember we would sit, at the time I was the product manager, and we would sit in meetings, and it was like we would make more decisions on what we weren't going to do than what we would do, because it was such engineering horsepower and marketing horsepower in the room. So I mean, things like the first audiophile CD player, the first, digital surround decoder, huge work in, apodizing filters for digital playback, a lot of the seminal kind of research in noise shaping and dither. All of that was done by this crazy team at Meridian.
Wow.
And it was just a great place to be, because again, there was no kind of suggestion was off limit. You would throw something out and it would be properly explained that, well, that might not be the best thing to do with a course of action, but it was never like, hey, that's a dumb idea.
Right.
Well, why would you say something? So it was hugely creative. We did some amazing product. So definitely those two I look up to quite a bit. Obviously my parents at a very young age, kind of, the work ethic and the ability to turn things on and off and stay focused was a big kind of thing for me. And then just a lot of people kind of along the way, my kind of path in the industry. So, I joke, and I know he's a friend of HiFi Buys. He's a former alum too, Dave Solomon. I joke he was my first American friend when I moved over, because coming in from the Bahamas, I went straight and worked at HiFi Buys.
Yep.
So that's kind of my near and dear connection to HiFi Buys. But Dave Solomon certainly has some fingerprints on me.
Fantastic. I that was the thing that I was reflecting on after thinking about 25 years in business tomorrow, is just all of the people along the way that have played such an important part. And it's been, I mean, an enormous amount of people, from customers and manufacturers to employees to family, and all of that. Just, it would not be possible without each and every one of them. And so anyway, I certainly get how that is.
Yeah, I mean, so I would definitely say Dave. I mean, these names will be familiar to you as well. I mean, my tenure at HiFi Buys, a lot of the guys who kind of prepared me to move out of retail to manufacturing, kind of the reps that service HiFi Buys. So like the high tech kind of crew.
Yep.
And in that I'm talking, I'm going to go real in the Wayback Machine, like Joe Dobbs.
Okay.
And David Nash, who I saw at CEDIA this year for the first time in a long time, and Bill Morton, those guys. Certainly Jim Kershaw at Creative Marketing, Chris Hobbs.
Jim Kershaw was probably my first rep. I think I met him in 90, I opened in 95. So I think I probably met him first part of 96.
Yeah. That I joined Buys in the spring of 97.
Wow.
And so, and again, these guys I kind of looked up to. It's like, wow, okay, so watch how they conduct business with us, the training, the mentoring, introducing product. And it was kind of that group of individuals that really made working for a manufacturer attractive for me. Was kind of, I saw that as a career advancement.
Great outfit. I mean, no doubt about it. And I think, David is just a light across the world. So it's,
Yeah.
So anyway, great first friend to have here. So anyway, that's awesome. So tell us a little bit about what are the your path on getting to MQA.
So started the business with my parents. We immigrated to the U.S. Was at HiFi Buys, was my first place of employment. Then moved to Meridian, which is obviously where I met Bob Stewart. I'm going to jump around a bit because there's certainly some overlap between MQA and Meridian. So MQA was invented under, I like to say, the Meridian umbrella. Mm-hmm. So there was kind of I don't want to call it a secret kind of division at Meridian, but we certainly had a skunk works department that would work on pure research. And that was really where, the apodizing filter technologies like that came out of. And that was kind of where MQA was born. And my involvement with MQA, while it was still under Meridian's roof, was kind of doing demonstrations either with Bob or kind of on my own for engineers, producers, artists, you know, the labels. It's where I met Mike Jabara, who's now our CEO. You know, so a lot of airplane time between Atlanta, New York, and LA.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of jumping around a bit. And then MQA kind of broke off out of Meridian, which I guess we'll talk about the company history in a bit, so I won't dive in too deep. But there was kind of a no poaching rule then. So I kind of joked with Bob. I said, you know, I feel like I'm in this marathon race and that I'm never going to finish because you guys at MQA have left me behind. So I stayed on with Meridian. We continued to do some pretty amazing work. Became vice president of Meridian America, which was kind of the US sales arm of the company. And when the opportunity arose to move to MQA, I jumped at the opportunity. So that's how I wound up at MQA now 4 years, almost 4 years.
Wow. Hard to believe how time flies.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
Well, we carry Meridian and really love their products, and they've got some great folks here in Atlanta taking care of it, and it's really wonderful for us to be working with them. So anyway.
Yeah, it's a great company.
Yep, absolutely. So what are the main reasons, you know, we're going to talk about kind of the character of MQA and what's behind it. So what are the main reasons MQA is who they are, not really what they are?
One thing I will say about Bob, and this is certainly a carryover from Meridian, is and I kind of, the only way I can describe it is Bob has a very interesting way with people of what I call loading the deck.
Okay.
So Bob will attract people at a very high level to fit skill sets that he needs or the company needs. So, I mean, you look at our group, amazingly talented engineers kind of on the software side. A lot of the engineers have real hands-on product development experience as well. So, you know, these guys aren't just writing code that runs in chipsets. These are guys that have designed, you know, products at Meridian like UltraDACs or DSP-8000s.
Right.
You know, so they have real world experience kind of with the product at high level. And then there's another kind of skill set, which is, you know, Mike Jabbar, who was a VP at Warner Music, and Spencer Chrysalou, who's director of content management. So we have a whole kind of side of our business, and Ben, sorry, I forgot Ben, in the UK, that comes from the music side of the business. So they know kind of how to navigate, you know, I'm just going to say for what it is, kind of the politics, but also the artists, the technology, how it's used in a studio, which is hugely helpful. And these are guys, again, that are at a very, very high level of the skill set they bring to us. Our marketing team is the same way. We have great people in digital and, you know, copy. So it's really interesting that, you know, it's all these skill sets that get brought together to achieve a common result. And our common result is to bring great sounding music to everybody. We all have, at some level, a passion of music, whether we play an instrument or we play the radio, as I joke.
Right.
But, you know, we all kind of feel this almost spiritual, religious kind of belief that music enriches our lives, and it's something we need to share with everybody.
That's well said. I absolutely believe in the passionate part of it, because without that, you know, the learning and the drive just doesn't come as easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So
Yeah.
tell us, so let's think a little bit more on the history of MQA. So tell me a little bit about that.
So yeah, as I mentioned, MQA was kind of invented under the Meridian umbrella. When it got to the point that MQA was starting, or Bob was starting to feel that, and we'll talk more about this when we talk about the technology. MQA is an end-to-end technology. The first part of the end is the studio. The last part of the end is the device that you're playing it on. And to get to the device end, MQA has to have some level of knowledge of the device that's being played with, that it's being played back in. And that's where the whole concept of certifying the hardware came in. And once Bob kind of wrapped his head around that, we quickly figured out that MQA couldn't stay with Meridian because, and I'll just pick a brand I know that's near to you and dear to you. DCS would never send a product to Meridian to have them dissected and certified.
That's
while Meridian was a competitor.
Right. That's probably.
So, yes. I always kind of joke when I talk about the history of Meridian. So, of MQA, and it's like, so, Bob in his mid 60s, tremendous career at Meridian, basically steps down, walks away from his baby, and starts a startup company.
What a move. Wow.
Yeah. So that's kind of, and that was, so MQA as a technology was really first talked about in a public way, kind of at an AES level in 2014, to kind of put a date on it.
Mm-hmm.
And in December of 2014, MQA was kind of unveiled to the world at a press event at the Shard in London.
Okay.
And Mike Jabara, the CEO, joined in 2016. And then trying to remember the year title launched. But the key for MQA is MQA kind of looks at territories in terms of launching product, because each territory consumes music in a different way.
Okay.
So, what we mean by that is, the US is a definite, the dominant way the consumer consumes music is through streaming. Mm-hmm. Whereas in Japan, streaming's not a thing. So
on disc.
So as strange as it sounds, MQA CD is a key player in that market.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. Whereas, in Europe, there's download stores, because download is still a thing. There's still a big part of the market that wants to, I was kind of.
Sorry, folks. Hopefully we'll get them back here in just a second. I have no audio of you.
Hello?
Yeah, there you are. Okay, good. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. So what I was saying is, and a lot of that stare comes from the labels, because they're going, well, obviously this market consumes this way, the technology can be applied here. But the amazing thing about MQA is anything with audio can be improved with MQA. So the ability to apply the technology is very, very broad. And the roadmap is very extensive, even from 2014 looking forward.
So you got me curious of a question. So can I take an MQA CD and put it into a computer and then put it on a NAS drive to then be served by a, let's say a Blue Sound node?
Yep, absolutely. You could take it in.
Sorry again, folks. Ken, can you hear me? Ken, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. We keep losing your audio. Do you have a set of headphones, or can you use a different mic?
Let me see. I'm going to turn my video off for a second, because I'm going to have to swing my monitor around.
Okay.
But let me try.
All right. Everybody hang in there. We're going to see if we can fix the technical difficulties. So what I'm going to do is a little house cleaning at this time, and ask y'all to like and subscribe. There's some buttons out there for you to do. Those of you that would like to ask questions, we love questions. So we'll do Q&A at the very end of this, and you end up finding, I know Ken is very capable of answering nearly any question that comes around. So anyway, we'd love to have that. There's a little form down there on the bottom that you can click on that basically you can put a question in down there. Also, to keep in touch with us, we've got kind of a big announcement we're going to make in the next week. And we'd like to make sure you're aware of it. So please go to hifibuys.com and sign on to the newsletter. Also, you end up finding, last week we had Mike Laffis with HRS. That's on our YouTube channel. And next week we have Richard Vandersteen, shall we say, here for HiFi Chats. And that's again next Friday at 2 o'clock. So we are with Ken Forsythe, who is again trying to fix some technical issues. And
we'll see if we can give it a go.
There you go. Hey. That sounds better too. So
hey, there you go.
Anyway, so we got all that all the housekeeping out of the way, so we're ready to roll again. So we've talked a little bit about the history of MQA, and what I want to know, how has MQA evolved as the world has evolved? Has it had to make changes and adapt? Okay, so this is not good. It might be a bandwidth issue.
Sorry, I'm back now.
Okay, all right, very good. So I was asking you basically about how has MQA evolved as the world has evolved. Have y'all had to adapt and change as the world has, just progressed?
I would say to a certain degree from the outside looking in, yes, but really we feel that the market's catching up with MQA. So as I mentioned, there was tremendous kind of roadmap from 2014 from when everything was kind of conceived. So, what we're seeing is the market's really now seeing the real potential of MQA because so many people are live streaming. Live stream was always kind of on our radar. It was a part of kind of the DNA of the technology, was be able to do very high quality and low bandwidth, which is ideal for streaming, which we're obviously struggling with today. So that's a key kind of part of the technology. And we showed the first live stream in 2018 at South by Southwest. We did a live high-res concert from London into Austin, Texas in real time.
I appreciate you turning me on to that.
Yeah, it was very cool, and we've done several of them since. And then in the fall of last year, we did the same thing, but we added high definition video to the stream as well. So we now can fully demonstrate the ability to do 1080p 4K video with MQA audio. And that's kind of been noticed by the market. So again, the market's kind of now seeing the real potential of what MQA can kind of bring to the party.
That's awesome. Can you tell everybody that's watching, how do they get those concerts? How do they be aware of them?
Yeah, you can go to our website, which is mqa.co.uk. Sorry.
Say it one more time for us.
Yeah. mqa.co.uk. Okay. And on the landing page, in the title, there's an MQA video, and click on it. There's several videos that you can kind of look at. And the only thing I'll warn you is they won't play through Safari. So you'll have to use another browser like Chrome or something else. But yeah, they play on all devices.
But the concerts, the live ones that you're doing, how can they be aware if one's coming up?
We've been at this point, it's been kind of technology demonstrations. So as we do them, we post them on our website.
Okay. So do you have a newsletter or something, or do they need to keep checking in?
Yeah, if they go to our website and just tick they want to be a part of our marketing, they'll get the marketing newsletter that'll invite them when we post new videos.
Okay, thank you very much. So a couple of very simple questions. How do you play MQA?
That's the $1 million question. MQA, and actually this is the really cool thing of MQA, is MQA can be played back in kind of 3 different ways. And one of the novel things about MQA coming to market is it didn't force you. It was the first time that something new was introduced that didn't force you immediately to buy a new piece of hardware.
Okay.
So in its basic form, without what we call any level of decoding, so to play back MQA in a device that doesn't recognize MQA, it will play back as a standard PCM file or stream. And because of when we do this thing called origami or zipping the file, it's anywhere between, if we use numbers, 16-bit 44.1 or 24-bit 48K, it's at least as good as CD, if not better. So without investing in any new hardware, we can stream to you higher than CD quality for no cost.
Wow.
Other than obviously the subscription to the music service. The next level up of playback is what we call core decoding, which is typically done in software. So like I could take my iPhone with the Tidal app It
Mhm.
has a core decoder built in, and the core decoder will authenticate the file, which a part of MQA's technology is at the studio level, the file is authenticated or signed off or approved by the artist, engineer, someone in the creative process of the file. So that as listening to the file, you know it's what they wanted you to hear.
Okay.
And if there's any loss between the studio, the streaming service, and your device, the file won't authenticate. So
Okay.
authentication is great because one, it's telling you it's what they wanted you to hear, and it's being delivered with no loss.
Mm-hmm.
So the core decoder in the software will authenticate the file. That's when it lights up and says master.
Okay.
And then it will perform the first unfold in the origami. So basically we'll go from, depending on the master, so let's say it's a 24-bit 192K master, it was folded down or zipped to 2448 so that we could stream it. What the core decoder will do is the first unfold and get us to 96K.
Okay.
So, you know, for folks who listen to high res by numbers, a core decoder without buying new hardware, so in other words, my iPhone with the Tidal app will give me 2496 authenticated playback from MQA.
Fantastic.
So that's giving us basically almost what every other high res service is doing without the need for a special DAC.
Mm-hmm. And a lot easier to stream. Because bandwidth is important. Ken, we have lost your audio again. Whoa.
In hardware, we call it a full render. And this is where we're matching the D to A's characteristics to the A to D converter that was used to make the file. And we'll talk more about that. But again, you know, the cool news is I can take my iPhone with a Tidal app with a product like a AudioQuest Dragonfly at $99.
Yep.
You know, add the right cable, and now I'm hearing, you know, 24-bit 352K
Isn't that amazing?
streamed over 3G.
Yeah. I mean, that's just amazing. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't have thought that would have been possible, you know, 10 years ago, and to think of where we are today. And I also think about my business, and I used to stand in front of people. Now I spend all my time on my computer. and so it's kind of interesting in that regard.
Well, but, I'll share a quick funny story with you. So okay. that was my comment. I remember the CES show that Paul from Tidal came by, and we streamed it from Norway into CES Las Vegas. It was shown behind closed doors, and we were all like little school kids.
Yeah.
And I remember listening to it with Bob, and I said, Bob, I said, you know, I have to ask, like, you know, 20, 25, 30 years ago, when you invented the high-end CD player, did you ever dream this was possible? And Bob looks at me and doesn't even miss a beat, and he goes, of course I did.
Well, then he's actually shown himself to be a very good visionary.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
all right, so we're going to get a little more into the product, but I wanted to ask, where can I hear MQA?
So kind of, as I mentioned, MQA, we use the...
Whoop, Ken, we lost you again. No. I can.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I have no idea what's going on with my internet.
All right. Well, all right. Let's go.
Gotcha.
Where can I
yeah, in the US, obviously Tidal Music is a key partner for us.
Yep.
There's also another streaming service called Nugs.net, which does live concerts.
And that's Nugs.net?
Yep, Nugs.net. And when I say live concerts, not live as in real time, but they do pre-recorded concerts that they stream in MQA.
Awesome.
Which is a cool service. Xiaomi Music in China, which is owned by Alibaba, is an MQA partner. So, and China is kind of a market unto itself.
Mm-hmm.
So again, we kind of waited till the time was right there with the guidance of the labels to get into China.
Mm-hmm.
Download is with Eonkyo in Japan is a big way to distribute and get MQA as well as MQA CDs. So we have a lot of the labels participating in distribution of MQA CD in
Mm-hmm.
Japan. I think we were talking earlier on, and you have just, or in the process of picking up Luxman,
Mm-hmm.
and they're just starting to launch MQA CD players. So when this crazy is over, we'll have to come up and hang out and listen to some MQA CD in the store.
I look forward to it. I
Yep.
bet you got one in the briefcase somewhere.
Yep.
We
One or two.
we don't see a lot of them here, so
Yeah. And again, it's by market, but and then the other kind of interesting twist is we're starting to see some vinyl be cut from actual MQA masters because of the quality of the recording capability.
No, that's awesome.
In that. So the Anniversary Doors albums were done in MQA, and then the vinyl was cut from the MQA digital master. Another really cool project, which is a great album, by the way, and another brand you do is at Brinkman. They have a very special relationship with, I always forget the guys, Bilcher, Hammer, and Gad. And the cool thing is they go in and these guys do their performance. It's captured in MQA. So the master is in MQA. They take the file that they play back through a Brinkman Nyquist DAC to drive the record lathe to cut
Isn't that awesome?
the lacquer with.
Yep.
So kind of an interesting kind of sideway, but and we think that's kind of just an interesting kind of testament to the quality of recording that we're getting, the quality of the file that MQA can kind of serve, is that, it's being used even for analog type distribution from an MQA master file.
Yep, we're going to get into the talk about that, and actually we're going to start off with kind of a couple other questions before we quite get there.
Mm-hmm.
And one is, can you talk about the special relationship I know that you have with DCS? I know that he mentioned it in his talk, John Quick, and just wanted to get your comments on it as well.
So DCS is certainly in very rarefied air in digital playback. They do everything at an exceptionally high level. They're also based in Cambridge, which is where we're based, so we're kind of neighbors. DCS was attracted in MQA very early on, but I will say there was some, I don't want to say skepticism, but they certainly wanted a very deep understanding of technically how it worked. And they wanted to feel very comfortable that they could deliver it at a very high level with no compromise to what they did, because what they did is very great and very special. And one of the things that, it took a while to work out, like with all partners, is that, what MQA isn't about is homogenizing the sound amongst products. So, and I'll pick two brands that you sell. So, a Blue Sound doesn't sound like a DCS. And I don't mean that to disparage Blue Sound. Blue Sound's amazing at $499, and it's engineered incredibly well at $499. But, at $15,000, you would expect something different, and DCS certainly delivers. And it's kind of everything they do that they would do for CD playback that they do for MQA that makes the product special. And we just kind of developed this relationship. They were very open to the technology. They were very excited about doing it. They executed at a very high level, and they achieve an incredible sound quality out of it.
Yeah, it's amazing that the amount of software they write and what the machine's capable of. And anyway, I've always been absolutely blown away at what MQA sounds like on a DCS device.
Yeah, and to kind of just put it in perspective, and again, it's not to disparage anybody, but DCS basically hand writes code for everything. They hand wrote their MQA code. So this wasn't a trivial exercise to implement MQA technology into their product because, one, it's not off-the-shelf components, and two, they're going to execute at an incredibly high level. So that you just build a relationship kind of working through getting it to where it's at.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing that, I think it's, every time we think we have done something at the greatest, there's always something greater that we can do later. And
Yeah.
And I even, feel that way about my operations here at the store. So I'm in the same boat.
Yeah, never stand still.
No, you can't. All right, so let's talk in human terms, if we can, about basically MQA and why it sounds so great.
So kind of, and I'm going to try to put some slides up in a second for you to help grasp what I'm talking about. But
okay.
One of the fundamental things that at MQA we believe is that people use words kind of in the wrong way. So
okay.
When we talk about resolution, we often look at it from almost like a photography standpoint. Like resolution is clarity, it's focus, it's the ability to separate two objects. It's like, how close is the trumpet player to the drum set? Can you clearly hear the difference between the two of them? How fast do transients happen? Do they start and stop in right time? We don't believe that numbers are a guarantee of quality of resolution.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we believe you can get a high resolution recording that just happens to be 16-bit 44.1 and get lousy sound out of a 24.192 file.
Yep. Yep.
So for us, the numbers aren't a guarantee of quality. They can be a contributing factor, but they're not the sole factor. Kind of with that being said, the novel approach MQA took, and this was based on recent kind of findings in neuroscience and psychoacoustics, is that humans are more sensitive to time intervals and timing than we are frequency. So for example, the average person off the street is 5 times more sensitive to timing changes than they are frequency changes. And this ability is kind of bred into us. It's evolution, because when we're walking in the woods and you hear a noise, in less than an instant, you have to know whether it can eat you or you can eat it. It's part of, it's part of evolution. You have to be able to locate it instantly. Mm-hmm. This skill is bred into us. It can be honed and gotten better. So, in the psychoacoustic research, it was shown that musicians, their acuity for time is 10 times more. There's trained listeners, and like conductors, that can be up to 50 times more critical of time than frequency.
And drummers. We've lost you again. Hey. Oh my gosh.
I can hear you.
All right. Very good. You are back.
Gotcha. So yeah, this is a skill that everybody has. We can practice and get better, but everybody has it. So knowing that information, how MQA approached the playback chain, and I mentioned earlier on, it's end to end. What we saw was that every kind of format or music distribution prior to MQA was focused on the thing in the middle, what held the music. Mm-hmm. So it's, was it analog or was it digital? How big was the bucket of digital that held it? Is it lossless in the bucket? So everybody was concerned on what the thing was in the middle. Nobody really looked at the magic happened in the studio. How do we get the magic in your home? They were just focused on the bit in the middle. How do we move it?
Right.
MQA is focused on saying, how do we get the magic from the studio to your home? The piece in the middle, not that it doesn't matter, is secondary to the process. And I'm going to try and get some slides up now for you that'll kind of show this.
Okay.
Let me get rid of this.
So Ken, I'm gonna do a little housekeeping while you're doing that. If y'all will, please like and subscribe to the channel out there. Basically, again, it's HiFi Buys on YouTube. Also, if you will, we've got a bunch of big news coming out and that kind of thing. So if you will, go to hifibuys.com and sign up for our newsletter. Sure would appreciate it, and it'll get you keep you in touch with what's going on out there with us. Last week on HiFi Chats number 5, we had Mike Laffis with HRS. That's also up on the YouTube channel. And next week we have Richard Vanderstein, and that again will be next Friday at 2 o'clock. Also, I would ask if you will, there's a place for you on the screen to ask a question. So please, I'm sure Ken is ready to answer any questions that are necessary, and we'd love to have that happen. So you about ready there, Ken?
Almost. Hang on. Sorry.
That's all right. Cheers.
Let's see. It's telling me I can't do it without leaving the. Let's try it again. Oh, there you go.
Voila. There you go.
Gotcha. So what I was saying is, you know, for us, kind of the magic happens in the studio, and in a perfect world, we would have a long microphone cable to our home that we would play back on.
Ken, would you mind hitting the little green button up there so you can enlarge that, be a little easier for everybody to see?
Oh, sorry.
Maybe not that one. Okay. So is this the slide you're trying to show us?
Yep.
Okay. Let's go for it.
Whoops. Jumped all over.
We've lost you again, Ken. Still have lost you.
Am I back?
Yes, you are right now.
Sorry
about this, folks, but
yeah,
you know,
we'll thank Comcast for this.
Yeah. All right. So
Okay.
here we go for it.
Gotcha. So I'm just going to skip to this slide. So basically what MQA does is we don't look at the digital lossless piece in the middle as what defines it. What we want to do is we want to link the microphone to your loudspeaker, because for us, that's the key that we're trying to deliver. We're trying to deliver the sound.
Mm-hmm.
The problem in this is that what we call the gateways, the A to D converter and the D to A converter, the piece that converts analog, and when we say analog, we mean music, not vinyl. What converts analog to digital, not to get overly technical, has a modulator, and the modulator introduces modulation noise. This modulation noise in this example becomes a part of the file. When we play it back, the DAC in the playback channel also introduces modulation noise. So the overarching goal of MQA is we want to eliminate that coming into digital. And the reason why we want to certify and see the DAC on the other end is that way we can match the DAC to the A to D used in the recording and keep the chain linear and not introduce these distortions on both ends of the channel. That way you're hearing really what happened at the microphone.
You know, it's kind of amazing. I've been a big time and phase coherent speaker guy, and over these chats, what we've heard is almost every single person talk about noise. And it just proves that it's so prevalent throughout all audio gear and systems and that kind of thing. And as much as I love my vinyl, I know it has its own stuff in it and that kind of thing. And I have just always found MQA to be very relaxing to my ears and relaxing to my brain. And so anyway, I think, you know, the reduction of noise seems to have that effect in every step of the system as I go through and improve systems and that kind of thing. Noise, getting rid of noise is kind of what always makes the system hit home for me.
Yeah, and you know, jumping back to my comments earlier on about resolution, you know, noise is the enemy of resolution. Mm-hmm. And the problem with this artifact modulation noise is it moves with the music. It doesn't stay constant. So as the music gets louder, the noise gets louder.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all this resolution that's masked by this moving noise that we can never hear. MQA fixes that in the encoder. MQA introduces no noise in the encoder step.
That's awesome.
So again, that's why, we firmly believe in when people listen to MQA, even without a decoder, the first comment they go is, wow, it's really clear.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, sometimes, we were talking about it the other day that this noise is kind of averaged out over the sound. And so a lot of times what we don't see is or don't recognize is that sometimes the thing that's brighter, sounds more resolute sometimes is actually noise that's either in the signal, in the product, being reintroduced in the product through not having a proper shelving system, through drivers that are not doing the right things, through crossover types, also through electrical and all this wireless stuff that's all over there. But, quite honestly, you can't do much without actually seeing what's up. So do you have more slides for us?
Yeah, I have one more, but I have a quick comment to make.
Okay.
Because I'm sure you'll be spending some time with this gen as well. So Peter McGrath has done some amazing recordings that we're now kind of re-encoding them in MQA for them. And the one comment, which is always for people who don't have MQA experience, or for the first time they listen to it, when he kind of introduces a piece, he always makes this comment. And at first it kind of doesn't make sense, but after you listen to it, you get it. He goes, I can always tell if it's MQA before the music starts. And basically what he's saying is, I can hear the room that the recording's in because it's such low noise, because there's no modulation noise. That's where all this beautiful low level resolution lives. That's the size of the hall and the fine details.
Mm-hmm. And the fact that he was at the recording session,
right.
Does have something to do with that. So that's pretty awesome. That's a cool story there. Thank you.
Yeah, the other, whoops. Actually, no, that was the slide I wanted.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. I think one of the things we end up, seeing in this basically is y'all are an end-to-end system. We were trying to get what's going from the microphone directly to the speaker. And by having authentication from one end to the other through the DAC, and then also, or through the opposite way, and then to the DAC as well, it allows you to make sure you get exactly what you want without a lot of that ringing or onset ringing that is kind of associated with digital. So
yeah, anyway. Absolutely. And again, what we're really after is getting to the original performance, not getting bogged down in between. I mean, it just has to become digital so we could move it through space and time and store it without degradation. But what we're really after is the magic that happened at the microphone. How can we get that to you completely losslessly whenever you want, anywhere you want?
And it is magic to me because I've tried to learn to play the guitar 8 times. I've been taking piano lessons through all this thing, and I still can't make a song. I about got Jingle Bells down, but I've always tried. So one of the things I wanted to just kind of, I guess, go over is there's a lot of devices out there that play MQA, and a lot of folks out there are interested, in how big the libraries are, how far are we going. I know basically from my understanding, and you can correct me, is basically all the labels in the world have signed up to do MQA, including the private labels or the company that manages a lot of the smaller labels. And so in time, so you're not hearing me. Okay. I think the others are out there. We'll wait till we get him back. But what you end up finding is, Ken, you there?
Yep, I'm here.
All right, good. So I'm not sure if you heard me. We talked about all the labels and that kind of thing. They've all signed into MQA, and gradually all of it's going to be libraried in MQA. And so can you tell us a little bit maybe about that? Because I may not have done as good of a job as you can with it.
Yeah, our kind of commercial agreements with the labels is that they will eventually publish everything in MQA. And the trick with that is it never runs out because it's new day and date content that's always being released.
Right.
And for us, that's the exciting thing, is that, you just don't see archive stuff. It's like, how many times can I listen to Steely Dan again? Well, if you're a Steely Dan fan, all the time. But it's like, it's really important, and we understood that in the beginning, that you're seeing pop stuff come, you're seeing R&B stuff come, you're seeing stuff that the biggest parts of the market are listening to come in MQA, and it's the day and date stuff. So I mean, I always joke when I talk about MQA, it's like, hey, the more Katy Perry, Beyonce comes, the more Frank Sinatra I'll get, but it's not going to come the other way around.
Right, I get that. So how many songs do y'all have now in your MQA catalog? Uh-oh. Ken, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
All right. So how many songs do you have in the MQA catalog currently?
It's really, that's probably one of the biggest questions I get, and I can't give you an honest answer, because we see content as it's encoded, but we don't see content that goes to the streaming services.
Okay.
So I don't have a library of what Tidal has available to the public. Like the encoders sit at the labels and they report back to us, and we can spot check them. But yeah, to give you an absolute number, I don't have it.
Okay, no worries.
And really the key number would be, the way I answer it is, has there been something you've looked for that you can't find?
That's a pretty viable answer. And I know you've got quite a bit of product out there, and the masters list on Tidal is growing every day, it seems. So
yeah,
I mean, just an amazing thing to be able to come up with something that actually takes a lot of that ringing and noise out of the digital signal. So I'm very, very happy to have that. What I want to do is find out a little bit about, before we get to Q&As and that kind of thing. Now, obviously, it's been a little bit of a crazy world. How have you had to adjust yourself within this time?
I almost feel guilty answering this question, because since joining MQA, I've worked from home.
Yes.
So it's been very business as usual for me.
Okay.
What I have found is my kind of outgoing conversations, I've become a lot more efficient, because the people I'm talking to on the other end are very, very focused.
Right.
They're not distracted being in an office, being in a factory. So, my personal work, I don't know what's the right word, not workload, but what I'm getting done has kind of skyrocketed. We found that across our whole MQA team. Our productivity, sorry, is the right word, has gone way up.
Yep.
And actually, I'm really just trying to cope of having my wife and the son home. I'm used to kind of having run of the house and leaving my door open. Now I have to close my door, and it's like, hey guys, like, if the door is closed, Dad's working.
Yep.
I'll see you at lunch.
I get that. It's it's been really interesting for us. We've had to make a lot of adjustments and that kind of thing. And again, we've been working on a pretty huge project that I'll announce next week. And so really excited about that. And, I again want to, thank you for being here today. We're going to get to some questions. I don't know what we have quite yet, but anyway, we will see. I want to ask y'all, if y'all will out there, to like and subscribe. Should we say you'll see the places on your screen to do so. Also to go to hifibuys.com and sign up on the newsletter, so you can find out what's going on out there. And also next week we'll have Richard Vanderstein on, and that again will be Friday at 2, which is our normal HiFi chats, and that will be HiFi chats number 7. Anyway, I don't know. It's been just a wonderful relationship having you with MQA, and the times you've been in the store. You've always been very gracious with your time, and I just want to, thank you personally for always doing that and always making yourself available. I know it's always been wonderful to have you around to be able to answer questions for folks and that kind of thing as well. So what we're going to do is get on with the questions here. I think I know we have one here from Todd F. And hey, Todd, thank you very much for asking a question. Skipping past the initial A to D conversion that happens in the studio, it seems you have developed a sliding window approach for the decoding of a lossless, highly compressed digital file that enables a variable bit rate output representation of the original. Am I close on how this works?
I would refer you to a website called Bob Talks.
Okay.
bobtalks.co.uk, and it's basically Bob's blog where he walks you through kind of the encoding, the decoding, the multiple levels of playback. One, because it's a great resource, and two, I just not really clear on your question.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that question could mean a few things, I realize. But anyway, skipping past the initial A to D conversion that happens in the studio, if you seem to have developed well, the idea is you have to include the A to D conversion that happens in the studio.
Right.
So because
again, if we can't just focus on one piece of it. We're delivering the sound of the studio to your device.
Correct. So it's actually removing the ring at the A to D part, and also the D to A.
At the D to A.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's why it is an end-to-end
correct
authentication kind of thing. So
correct.
As long as everything's authenticated in the chain, everything happens exactly as that. And then I think on the D to A converter end, you can have one unfolding and still have advantage. But it's better if you have the DAC that does the second unfolding as well. So correct. You have a renderer that does, which is the thing that basically renders the digital file, and then the second part of the DAC, and that's where the two unfolding processes happen.
Right, which I'll kind of make the comment because I think maybe I understand some of where his question's coming from. Okay. So one thing that's key to understand as well when we talk about authenticating the file is in the studio, they have the ability to authenticate a fully unfolded file, a MQA core, and a non-decoded file. So they have the ability to authenticate every way that it plays back so that you know you're getting what they wanted and they sign off on it. So, you know, if the question is, hey, I have a DAC that's 2496, but the file's actually 24192, the 2496 that you're hearing is still signed off by the studio and authenticated.
Awesome. That's a good explanation of it. So
yeah.
Anyway.
So I hope that answers your question.
And again, Todd F., thank you very much for the question. All right, so I don't believe that we have. All right, so I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. Sorry for some of the technical difficulties. I know it's difficult to struggle through them, but I know all of you have experienced it one point or another.
Sorry, guys.
It's all right, Ken. So I just want to thank y'all for joining us, HiFi Buys on HiFi Chats. This is with Ken Forsythe, the Director of Market Development for MQA. He also was previously a HiFi Buys employee and has been kind of in this a long, long time in his life, and we really enjoy him being in the industry. Ken, thank you very much for your time today.
You're quite welcome. Hey, I can't wait for, us to get on the other side of this and again, spin some MQA CDs and have a good time in the store.
Absolutely. So actually there is a question out there, if I may, by Taylor P. How did MQA and Nugs get together?
Sorry?
How did MQA and Nugs get together?
Sorry, one more time, Alan, I can't hear you.
All right. On the bottom of your screen, there's a chats thing down there. See where it
Sorry,
says?
one more time.
At the bottom of your screen, it says chat.
Yep. Okay. Yep. I can see it now.
Pull that up. So the question we're working on is how did MQA and Nugs get together? By Taylor P.
Nugs actually approached us from the MQA live stream standpoint. When they saw us first kind of show the technology that we could do a real concert in real time, because that's obviously their business model. So I'll just say kind of watch this space, but that's how the two of us connected in, was the desire to do real-time concerts in the highest quality that we could in stream.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I think it's awesome that y'all been able to add video to some of these things as well. And I think that's really great. So
yeah, it really shows kind of the power of the technology and the vision of the roadmap and the benefit we can bring, to any kind of sound.
Yep.
Through MQA.
So we have another question here from Ralph T. And Taylor, thank you very much for that question.
Sorry, you're gone again.
Okay. So if you will look at the question up there from Ralph T.
Yep.
It has, have manufacturers embraced this technology? And Ralph, that's a great question because we should have covered this. And so I really appreciate you asking that. So let us know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm embarrassed to say I can't give you a number. If you go to our website, mqa.co.uk, there'll be a listing of all the manufacturers and categories. But you know, the real exciting thing is we have products from $99 to $130,000. We have automotive head units that do MQA. We have portable audio units that are doing MQA. We have, you know, products like this dongle for portable audio market. So we have Control 4 is in control and distribution. So MQA playback capability is in every category of product currently available, which is great. And again, just seeing how we can bring better sound to any audio, I think you'll see even more categories and more manufacturers kind of participate as we kind of go along.
I think we're seeing that, you know, as time goes by and that kind of thing. And, you know, when you have somebody like DCS that, you know, basically says yes to doing it, you end up finding a lot of times others will follow. When you have a company like AudioQuest selling 3 different levels of a Dragonfly and all 3 of them can do QA, that's pretty amazing as well. So so that's from one gamut to the other, which means you're going to fill in the places which actually are already filled in pretty well. I think we carry, I don't know, 10, 12 lines down here that actually have MQA capabilities. So
yeah, I mean, the other brand I'll plug, which I mean won't mean much to you, Alan, is, you know, there's several LG phones that do MQA. So, you know, talk about bringing high quality audio to the mass market. It isn't much more mass market than a mobile phone by LG.
That's certainly true.
Yeah.
Well, what a great job done by you guys for really even what I'd call a relatively young company to, you know, get to, shall we say, the kind of status of where you are at this point. I know I get asked, and an awful lot of people down here that we work with do use title and MQA. And, you know, like myself, I do both CoBuzz and MQA, but or CoBuzz and title. But I will tell you, when I have my preference, I normally go to the MQA file.
Awesome.
Because again, I believe in physics and believe in what time does, and I always find it more comfortable in my brain. So and anytime I can make this brain relax, then I'm actually ahead of the curve. So that's a good thing. Listen, I want to let's see. Okay, I think that's it. There is links to HiFi Chat's playlist on Tidal is in the chat there, guys, and I want to thank you all for joining us today. This again was with Ken Forsythe, Director of Market Development for MQA. And again, I want to thank you for your time today, Ken.
You're quite welcome. Pleasure to be here.
I'm so glad to have you. You were a wonderful, wonderful guest. All right, so that's pretty much it for HiFi Buys. This is Alan Jones, and that is the completion of HiFi Chats number 6. See ya.